What's going on, everybody? This week I wanted to go over the steering, but I'm still waiting on a couple parts that have yet to come in. Amazon's taking a little bit longer than expected to ship them to me, so I thought I'd go over a quick overview of how I cut down my Minn Kota trolling motor, the length of the shaft. So it's fairly simple. It's pretty easy. It's just a matter of being careful, cutting through the lines when you cut through the shaft. If you feel inclined to do so, you can take everything apart and pull the wires through, but I don't think it's necessary to go through that process. So let's get to it and show you how I did mine. So here we go. So it's pretty simple. What you want to do is sort of let it down and then find the height you want. Make sure it clears as high as you want it or as low as you want it. Then what you want to do is kind of figure out and put a piece of tape. You know, I gave it about an inch or so of space between. I thought that was pretty good, but it's fairly simple. So what you want to do is grab some tools. I think a flathead and a Phillips is what I needed. There's some screws at the head of the trolling motor that you want to open up. About 4 of them. And what it does is it pops the cap off. Relieving the internals, the entire cable assembly. So that's relieved. We got to make sure we don't lose these screws here, like that. Now when I did mine, I left the full length of the cable and sort of just bundled it up here, but it's your choice. So you got to imagine here that you still have this length. You still have this length of tube going all the way up, because that's really where it would have sat that high had I left the shaft. And I didn't think it was really practical having this whole shaft extend all the way here. It literally came out to about the hatch portion. I didn't think it was really important to me, so I decided to cut mine down. So pretty much what you do is you unscrew this end here in the head, and what you want to do is you want to make sure when you're cutting it down that the orientation of the screw runs the same direction as your prop. So when you pull this off, make sure you don't lose that nut. So when you pull it off, you make sure your hole runs through the fiberglass tube at the same direction as your prop. So when you screw it in, you screw that direction. So when you put your head back on, the trolling motor head, you can kind of tell which direction the prop is facing. So it's pretty simple. I mean, that's all it really is to it. You just make sure you leave enough clearance, because the recess for this head is about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches or so. And then once that's all the way down, you want to make sure you keep that locking mechanism at least some clearance between. You don't have to cut the full length that I did. I think what I cut, let's see how much I cut. I cut a total of 26 inches off my trolling motor. And once I cut that, you just got to make sure you put your hole at the exact spot you need. I mean, you can kind of eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. But once you get it in the spot, you can kind of get a general direction of where your trolling motor is facing. So once you get that head popped off, what you want to do is get your length of how much you want to cut. Make sure you measure twice, cut once, because once you cut it, you'll have to order another one. They're actually pretty cheap. I looked them up online. The shafts range from 20 to 40 bucks. It really depends on which model you have. So they're not that bad, to be honest. So once you get your shaft cut down, you put your head back on. And what I did is I sort of marked, once it's compressed all the way down, I marked the little hole and make sure everything was lined up somewhat straight. And then once everything was lined up, you can make a mark on both sides and then drill right through. You got to be careful though when you're drilling through this that you don't hit these wires. I thought it was a lot easier to just do it without pulling everything together and pulling the wires out. So you just make sure you drill straight through across and make sure you're not angling your drill or your bit or anything like that. So once you get it to where you want it to, you make sure that your head is facing the right direction, and then you run your screw through. Make sure the screw runs. I ran mine between the wires. Sort of screw it in because I drilled it just enough so the screw can fit in. And then you put your nut back in, and then you just sort of hold the nut and screw in at the same time. It doesn't have to be Hulk tight, just enough so it holds itself on there. There's no weight to it. So, and then what you're left is with, the extension of wire. Mine actually came with plugs that you can, unplug and plug it back in. I left it just because I didn't have any plugs to replace them, so I left them with the stock connectors, and I sort of wound mine together and tucked them down. I was kind of worried about heating issues, but I think it'll be all right. We'll see how it is. I mean, if I get an overheating issue, then I'll trim them. I'll check it after a couple of uses just to make sure. That's that. You pop your screw back in. To hold. That's pretty much it. I mean, the hardest part is uncapping the head, the trolling motor cap, and trimming the wires if you want to, but everything else, I mean, it's fairly simple. I mean, cutting the post, that's easy. It's just a matter of I used a hacksaw and just slowly cut around. What you can do is you can actually mark around the tube, with a piece of tape and sort of score around it, and then just follow that line around until you cut through. It's pretty soft enough to where if you use a hacksaw, it's easy. So it's not too bad, pretty simple. This gave me that much of a length of clearance all the way up here, so now if I want I can lay a cooler across. But I mean, that's pretty much it as far as, so I mean, it's a simplified explanation of how to cut down your trolling motor shaft. So I mean, and you got this extra piece to use for whatever you want. If you want to use it for a boom, you want to use it for a post out back, whatever. So it's just a little quick video just to show you how to cut down your trolling motor. So that's how I cut down my trolling motor. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you have any questions, anything that I missed. It's pretty straightforward. It's not that hard to do, so let me know what you guys think. Comment, like, subscribe. If you want to see any future projects, I think in a couple weeks it'll be ready. Just waiting on a couple parts for the steering to get all that buttoned up. Started working on that, so I think it's going to be an awesome outcome. Later, guys.